Thank you, everybody. After my talk, definitely feel free to evaluate me harshly, fill out a form. Tell me how badly I did. Great. I'd really like to consider this a bit more of a conversation. So as I'm going along, I'm going to do like possibly about 30 minutes max on this talk. And if y'all have any questions or I'm saying something and it doesn't make sense, please shout it out, just like yell at me. I'm probably not going to see your hands because I'll be running in my head wondering what I forgot to talk about that I was supposed to talk about. So just like yell it out, and I'm happy to answer your questions, and it's not going to interrupt the flow, okay? So I'm going to begin with my sustainability journey in just about 2003, early 2000s. At that point, many of you will remember that the Cold War was over. The Y2K bug did not, in fact, wipe out our lives. And then we were left with this thing where, what are we going to do with it? And at that time, I maybe naively felt like we were like, oh, this is going to be it. We fix it now. This is great. All that's done. We're going to find a way to work together symbiotically, and we're going to create like a future for everybody, and it's going to be fantastic. And as all of you know, that is not what happened. And we went the other way. We had increasing extremism, ever-widening inequality, and very real impacts from environmental destruction, right? Heroin. So that's when I began to shift my focus to sustainability, which was a pretty new idea for me at the time. And I got this gig at Ohio University down the road from here, and I did not know that Ohio was a state, so that's exciting. So when I got here, the first thing I wanted to do was figure out what the heck I was, and this great group of faculty, they actually introduced myself and another faculty to the environmental concerns around this area, and they were like, hey, guess what? You're in Appalachia. I was like, Apple what? Really? Okay. So I'm in Appalachia. That's great. And it turns out, as they told me, that there is a tremendous amount of natural resources in Appalachia. And like we always do, we decided that we needed to extract that value. So most of you probably know that the state of Ohio, at a certain point, would cut down just about every single tree in the entire state of Ohio. Some of that was for timber, of course, but a lot of it was to actually burn it, so that we can make charcoal, so we could then burn the charcoal and create a hot fire to actually smelt the iron ore. So this is what we do. Welcome to us. And in the first half of the 21st century, that's when we discovered coal. And that's when in Southeast Ohio, all kinds of strip mining and underground mining were happening, right? And at strip mining, which is here, most of you know, this is also called mountaintop removal mining, right? They clear cut the forest, scrape through the soils to get at the coal. And then underground mining, which is the picture on your right there, this is a room and pillar methodology where they would tunnel underground, pump out the water so they could access the coal down. But by the 1970s, most of the mining companies had moved on, and they left behind disturbed land and inadequate restoration. You may have seen some of these restoration areas, but the trees are all really young and skinny, and it does not have the biodiversity that it used to have before. And many of the underground mines that weren't sealed properly, they fill up with water, and that toxic water to this day still leaches out into streams. And it kills the aquatic life in over 1,300 miles of streams in Ohio alone. So I'm with this faculty group that's teaching us about this stuff, and they take us out one day to show us to this pollution. This pollution is called acidemia drainage, which is what it is. I've never seen anything like this before. So that water that seeps back into the mine, it comes in contact with mineral surfaces that have been buried for 300 million years. And in Appalachia, there's a lot of sulfides. So once those sulfides and that oxygen and that water attach there, it leaches all that iron from the walls, and it also creates a high concentration of sulfuric acid. So what you end up with here is acidic, iron-laden sludge. That is acidemia drainage. And so I see this stuff, and you can smell it, by the way, before you get there. It smells like Hades. It's very sulfur-ridden, so you can smell it before you get there. And when I got there and they were telling me about this, I was like, well, wait a minute, I know about artist pigments. Like iron oxide. We've been painting with those things since cave walls. That's iron oxide. How about I make paint out of it? And they're like, we don't know if you can do that. I was like, okay. So I took a jar back to my studio, and I failed absolutely miserably. Made chunks of terrible stuff that I couldn't paint with. It was awful. I was like, wow, that was one of the worst ideas I've ever had. That was bad. And about that time, like you do, I'm watching my kid. She's a girl. She's beating the crap out of all the boys, on the soccer field. It's true story. And then my buddy Elaine comes up to me and she's like, hey, I need your help. I was like, why? She's like, well, you're an artist. I was like, yeah, guilty. Artist. She's like, I'm working with this professor, and he's trying to like figure this thing out, and I don't know what to, we need your help. Would you have coffee with him? And I was like, yeah. So I went and I had coffee with Professor Gamblin. And he's like, yeah, I'm trying to like actually turn this iron oxide sludge into pigments. I was like, you're doing what now? Like, I was trying to do that. It doesn't work. He's like, yeah, but I think I know we can make it work if we can work together. I was like, yeah. And this is really fun too, because you can tell he's a cool dude, right? You can tell he's like a really cool dude. And he's like, we're sitting there talking, and I just, over time, just working with him, I realized that scientists and artists share two things. We share curiosity and failure. We're like, whoa, we get crazy ideas, we pursue all these things, and most of the time, we fall pretty far short. But in that failure, we always pick up one more clue that makes us go forward, and I think that's why the weird scientists and the weird artists hang out together and have a good time. So this is working out really good. Basically, what happens is this. Here's Professor Riefler's process. This is 20 minutes from my doorstep. This is the ore to seed. And essentially, that acid mine drainage pollution, because it's dissolved iron and dissolved acid, when it comes out of the mine, it's actually crystal clear. So what we do is we neutralize the acidity with a base, sodium hydroxide or something else, and we take it from a pH of like 2 to 3, take that pH up to 7 to 8, sometimes a little higher if you want to. What happens is you can see all those iron crystals starting to form, and all they want to do is grab onto oxygen. So we give it oxygen. In this case, chemically, you can do it through air too. Orange hydroxide crystals, they're heavy, they fall to the bottom, you got clean water. When the water is neutral, you put it back in the seat, you take the sludge, and you dry it, and you process it, and you have pigment. Except that Professor Riefler and I both had no idea what actually made a healthy stream. So we were like, oh, it should work. That should work. So this is very fortunate. Our third partner, Michelle McGyver, joined us. She is like an awesome person. She was the head of the Sunday Creek Watershed Coordinator. She's the head of like Ohio Mine Land President. She's like the head of like 50 things. And she's like amazing. She's the one that people want to see when we go out to the communities. When we go out there, they're like, where's Michelle? Like, she's not here today. And then that shuts down the meeting. So team's complete. This is the chemistry. The chemistry is simple. The chemistry itself isn't patentable because it's kind of a known process. So Guy said that what he needed my help for was that we can do this process. We can produce a pigment out of it. But the pigment has to be of high enough quality that we can sell it to actually make enough money to pay for the cleanup of the street. And that's what my job was. My job was to be like, yeah, okay, it's too clunky, it doesn't do this, the light fastness isn't there. All those qualities you want in a good permanent pigment. And in the process, this is something, the guy doesn't tell me everything right away. I don't think he wanted to tell me for a while, but a couple of years ago, he came to me and he said, okay, look, I gotta tell you something. When I go to these engineering conferences, the engineers come up to him and they're all like, so you're working with an artist? Yep. It's like, yeah. I'm like, what's that like? Because you know about artists. I'm like, okay. So whenever I go to these things now, what I have to do is I actually have to talk about what art does. And what I wanted to do with this process is I wanted to create art that was beautiful enough that basically people would first be impacted by it, and that would bypass their automatic defenses for not talking about sustainability, not talking about environmental concerns. And I explained to the engineers this way. I explained to the engineers that this is the inside of an artist's brain at any given month. 2,000 ideas jostling around. This is 24 hours a day. It doesn't shut off. It's not possible. And then for me, like, I'll just be like, oh, dude, remember that like green nebula thing? It's like so huge. Oh, yeah, but what about that other thing? The thing that was in Yellowstone with the thing? What about the diatom? What about that other thing? And that's what my brain does all the time. I just tell us this, and then eventually what happens is it just like all comes together one night and painting comes out of it. Oh. And so this is the series, and you can see the one that's in the show here, that began when I first began working with the pigments. So these are on aluminum panel that are square. This one's about 36 by 36 inches. And crazy start to everything. The paintings also like started to change because this is the color that we first got when we were making pigments. Mm-hmm. It's nothing to get excited about. It's more replicable. It's like closer to probably like, baby poop than anything else. And we couldn't get coating companies and painting companies to take us seriously, and we couldn't get funding. People were like, this is not going to work. Look at what this is. This is total crap. And we're like, what if it wasn't crap? What if it could be something else? We couldn't get funding. So we worked for years. We worked for 5 or 6 years together, Professor Reeves and myself, back and forth, testing out all kinds of different oxidization techniques, like temperature control, all kinds of things. And this is actually the color that we're getting now out of our initial chemical process. So we're pretty stoked about it. It's a really nice orange, and it's fun to paint with. This is a painting, it's actually a satellite view of the Hudson River Valley, and it's got that orange paint in it. And then what we started to figure out is that there's a process called calcining. And so if you heat the iron oxide to a really high temperature for a short period of time, it actually changes its crystal formulation, and that means that it makes a different color. So in this case, we took about 400 pounds and put it into this giant kiln. This is Matt Waddell, who's an amazing ceramic artist out there in Albany. He built this kiln, like by himself. You gotta meet this guy, it's crazy. Which is why we like him, of course. He's crazy enough that basically when he starts firing this at 2 a.m., I'll get a text. Like, this is the text. And he's like, it's going good. I'm like, yeah, thanks, Matt. I'll call you in the morning, man. And then that same orange pigment, when we take it to this temperature, it actually looks like this in the morning. Yeah, me too, right?
Yeah.
It's still alchemy. Every time it happens, I'm like, it did it again. It's so cool, you know? And this red is really vibrant. It's really fun to use in paintings. This is a piece that's at the Union League Club of Chicago. And like, it was great. And then the thing about it is that like, so I'm not a scientist, I'm just an artist, and my job on the squad is to be the radical guy. My job is when they're all talking to each other about different things. My job is to be like, what about something else? What about something different? What about something crazy? You know? And so Reefer has this furnace in his lab, and I was like, yeah, look, this calcining of the iron is yielding really good temperature. What if we turn your furnace like all the way up? You know? And he's like, we don't want to do that. I was like, I think we want to do that. And so we do it. And this is the color that we got, that crazy high temperature. It's the same orange stuff. It's crazy. This is fantastic. It's a color that's called Caput Mortem. I can talk more about that at the end if you have questions about it. But it is like, every time it happens, it's just a miracle. And then I've been making torodangos with them. It's this Japanese technique of taking water and clay and pigment and grinding it on a glass until you get like a perfectly shiny sphere. It's just a really super meditative practice. I'm happy to show you all how to do it because honestly, it's like probably save my mental health. It's really bad. But that violet also makes like really little bit necklace.
Yeah.
So we got it working in the lab. We can make the pigment now. It's an orange. We can fire it. We can make different colors. But making a 5-gallon bucket full of this stuff is not going to pay for the clean blistering. We've got to go industrial. We have to have it work on an industrial scale. And the thing is we still couldn't get funding. We had no funding. We were dealing with 1,000 here and 500 there and something else, and a lot of really generous students. And so I was actually with my wife and my daughter in Portland, Oregon on a vacation, and I left them at this, like a great husband, I left them at the Science Museum. I was like, I gotta go do something. And I drove across town in Portland, Oregon, and I barged into the Gamblin Artists factory. And I said, I gotta talk to somebody, I've got this stuff. And they were like, security, you know. And I literally stood there without an appointment for a while, and finally she said, Scott can come out and talk to you for like 2 minutes, that's it. So like, just hanging in the lobby, and Scott Gelati, the plant manager, comes out and he talks to me. And we ended up going back to this office. We spent about 3 hours together that day. And we left that day with them agreeing to test our pigments independently to prove that they are non-toxic, that they're safe, that they're light fast, that they meet the highest quality for artist standards. And they've been great partners ever since, which is fantastic. And then they were like, well, why don't we make some? And I was like, yeah, let's make some. And so I actually sent them a bucket, and they made 500 tubes of oil paint, you know, which is like here. And we actually released them to artists around the world through a Kickstarter campaign in 2018. Did anybody here, like, any of my supporters here who supported that campaign? Okay. You could just say yes, I wouldn't know. But okay. Basically, it was successful somehow. We raised $33,000. We got 500 tubes of oil paint shipped out all over the country, which is great. And artists from around the world, now these are a bunch of other artists, they send me images all the time of how they're using the pigments, which is like the coolest thing to get in your inbox. It's like great, you know? Awesome. And what happened out of that, which is great, is that we actually got funding. So once we got Gamblin, then they were like, okay, we can give you funding. And the Sugar Rush Foundation gave us $50,000 to start building a test facility so we could prove that this would work on an industrial scale, right? So we got all kinds of students involved. We mashed up science classes and art classes to design the plant. And we didn't tell them that was going to happen. It was a really fun day. They didn't know it was going to happen. I'll tell you a story about that later. And then we actually had the grad students go out to Corning where the plant was going to be built, interview all the community members to find out, well, you know, what do you want? What if this plant's going to be built in your public park? What do you want to say about your city in relationship to this poison? Because the whole town, of course, mined coal. Coal mining companies are gone. Now where they used to swim and fish is just a dead street, you know? So it's very important for that to happen. We got it done. This is our plant. That's a very cool little plant. Gosh, it took so long to get these. And we started proving this process, which is great. That's the actual seep that's coming out of the mine. It's about 100 feet below that. And then up here are the tanks. And it just goes through the same process that I showed you chemically, right? We neutralize the acidity, we let it settle, we put it through a settling tank and put it out back to the stream. And we learned a lot. Like we learned, they were like, you know. But then the people who funded it was like, well, is there a big enough market for iron oxide? And we were like, sure. You know, but then we had to figure it out. So we're very lucky. It turns out that not only have a lot of societies over, you know, hundreds of thousands of years actually use mining effluent as paint, things like that, right? This is in Sweden from copper mines. But also, just a few years ago, the annual U.S. production of iron oxide pigments was 50,000 metric tons annually, but we import 178,000 metric tons, nearly all of it from China. So imagine we could replace that with domestic iron oxide that was actually a waste product, right? We turned it into an entrepreneurial endeavor rather than a societal cost. So Gamblin was excited about all of this, plants going, and they're like, we want to make paints. We want to use all three colors, the raw, the red, the violet. We want to make a whole thing. We were like, yeah. And we couldn't produce that in our plant at all. We could produce very small quantities. So the way we do it is we actually go out and we do the bucket brigade. We bring hundreds of buckets and many students who are paid well. And then we scoop up the iron and we sort it and we filter it. This is just hundreds and hundreds of buckets. It usually takes about 500 buckets to do that. We process it, we ship it out to Gamblin. This is Gamblin's factory. They make it in their factory. I still think this is like the coolest process. If you ever get a chance, they're really friendly. Go out and visit them. They're like super nice people. They'll take you around the factory and everything else. And if Bob's there, he'll like barbecue a chicken. And then so artists, you know, keep using it. It's fantastic. There's only one little issue, which is that it was released on March 20th, 2020. Oh, so you know. Okay. It's good. I have to explain that part. So our big PR splash was a little less of a splash. But from then until now, we actually have sold over 10,000 sets. So I sold over 30,000 tubes of oil paint. What Gamblin does is they donate 20% of all of their sales back to our project. So we can actually pay for student labor and pay for that kind of stuff, which is, they're like amazing partners. Right now we're under discussions to take the violet and make it a permanent color in their line. So we're like, we'll cheer with it. Shit. This is where we actually do all the testing. This is, I actually cleaned it up, but this is my studio. And mostly I have like 2 or 3 graduate students that are paid that are working with me on this, and we do tons and tons of tests and drawdowns and everything, just to try to hone it in, to try to get it so it is really, really valuable in the market. So we make maximum dollar, right, per pound to pay for the cleanup of the streams. And this is like so cool. I just threw these slides in here like randomly yesterday because this is what we just got. On the left, this is what we got just last week with a new oxidant process that we're using. And it's, look how close it is. That's Gamblin's raw cyanide on the right. That's our product from last week, like on the left. So we're like stoked about it. And then we always like play with it, you know, and the great thing is that it still makes amazing colors. It still makes this great, like rich, like burnt sienna kind of color, and the violet on the right. It's just great. So that's been like, it's been a good week, y'all. It's been a good week. It's nice to be here telling you about good stuff. It's good. So out of all of this, we got that little plant built and everything else, and that was enough to get Ohio Department of Natural Resources on board, and then they were like, yeah. So we got a couple $1 million in funding from the Abandoned Mine Land Reclamation Fund, and we started actually on what was going to be our full-scale treatment plant here. So this is the mine seat at Truetown, Ohio. This is Truetown, it's like 8 houses. And then this is like 38 acres of farmland here. These little schematics here, that is what the plant is maybe going to be there, right? This one seat, this is the #1 priority in the state of Ohio for acid mine drainage. Over 1 million gallons every single day comes out of there. And that 1 million gallons contains over 7,200 pounds of iron every single day. It's huge, right? and it kills the next 7 miles of stream. So rural action worked and found an anonymous donor who bought that farmland for us, and we got that handler money. And then what we did is we had groundbreaking in June, last year June, just about a year from now. We had people come out from DC, from the Department of the Interior, the head of ODNR was there, all kinds of stuff, which is great. That's our farmland behind it's kind of cool. And then we finished it, the ground preparation, just a little while ago. So this is us standing where the plant's gonna be built. It's about a 12-foot drop off. There's about 14, 16 acres out there. All that is gonna be wetland. So we're really close. So what happened after this is that people got more excited about it. And then Biden's infrastructure law came along, and out of that, ODNR worked with that. So we actually got $3.6 million last year from the infrastructure money to hire an engineering consulting firm to work with us on the final design for the plant. So that's AECOM. We've been working with them for a few months now. Should be about 6 more months. We should have a design finished for that, which is great because they're really helping us figure out, how things are going to work. I don't know how to build a plant. And think about that every bolt. It's really crazy. The schematics, I don't know. I just kind of nod in those meetings, but yeah. Keep that word. That's a good job. So this is an aerial view of what it looks like right now. So you can see up there, up above that white line up there, that is where we're going to build the plant. And then you can see it's always wet. This is going to be easy to make a wetland here. No problem. This is where the acid seep is right here. It comes out, 1 million gallons a day. Army Corps of Engineers came in and dug this channel. So you can see it's all orange. Directs that acid drainage pollution all the way down here, and it comes out right here. This is Sunday Creek, and you can see it's actually pretty green. This is a reasonably healthy stream. You got fish in there, insects, everything else. As soon as that pollution hits it right there, the next 7 miles of that creek are dead. All the way to Hawking. So what we're gonna do is we're actually, once that plant is up there, and we clean that water, and that clean water will actually go into the wetland. It'll be further, naturally treated in the wetland process, and then it will come out here and exit as clean, safe water into that stream, which is great. So, the engineers are sitting around, and everybody was like, I'm gonna make this wetland, it's gonna do its thing. And I was like, well, what if a wetland could be like a thing where people could walk through it, and there could be signs about native plants that are there and other kinds of stuff. And they all got real quiet, and I said, and what if we put sculptures in it? And then they got even more quieter. But over time, I've convinced them that's actually gonna be cool, this can happen. But this is the architect's initial ideas, and we were like, well, maybe something more like this. And then I have a grad student, Brooke Ripley, who's working with me right now. She's an amazing grad student. And we're like, we haven't shown it to the engineers yet, but we want something a little more like this. Yeah. We want Art Nouveau, drum-worthy, crazy stuff. So I gotta show that next week. We're gonna see what the response is gonna be, which is good. But really we're moving along so fast now. And the cool thing about this process, and the cool thing about that plant where it is that unlike a lot of other things, this is something where in 2 years from now, 1.5 to 2 years from now, the first day that we turn that plant on, the first day we turn that plant on and begin intercepting all of that pollution, that stream water goes back to health. First day. And then you get a couple of good seasonal floods, good rains and things like that, and all that scum on the bottom will wash away. So within a couple of years after the plant opening up, we should have a fully healthy 7 miles of stream. It's that fast, which is what I love about this. Recovery is definitely possible. There's Michelle hugging her fish. Don't know his name. Could be a her. I don't. So, all of this stuff, looking at these engineering schemes, looking at all these coal mine maps, sitting in the room with scientists, and the bureaucracy, I can talk to you sometime if you buy the drinks about the bureaucracies of working with large grants from the government. Some of you may know. It's a learning lesson for me, and all of that kind of led me to just think about, wow, what else is out there? What else can artists do when they intersect with sciences and things like this? And so I started this other series of mini little collaborations. This was at my Palo Alto gallery last year. This is about 5 feet by 5 feet. And I met these 2 scientists out there, and they're so amazingly smart. It's awesome. Jenny Yama and Miranda Wang. And they are actually in Menlo Park in San Francisco area, and they are perfecting a process to extract the unrecyclable plastics from the waste stream around there and turn them into virgin plastic bottles. And they've gotten this amazing, huge angel grants and everything else. They're so nice. So they send me pulverized plastic and stuff, which I incorporated into the paints in this painting. So I hope in a couple of years that process takes over all of our recycling, which would be huge. And then I also worked with this other scientist Ashley Beckwith. She's a researcher with Draper Labs at MIT. And what she's doing is taking these like vats of liquid, don't ask me what's in it, I don't know, she told me. And she grows tree fibers in there. So they just grow in a vat. With the idea that maybe our paper and our lumber can come from just like vats rather than coming down forests. So I was like, can I have some of your tree fiber? She was like, oh. So she sent me some of her tree fiber, so I ground that up and I used it in this painting, which is also 5 feet by 5 feet. This is a satellite view of the Monterey Bay, because the tree fiber that she's using is from the Monterey Pine. And the Monterey Pine, which is located down here in this Monterey Peninsula down there, is a hugely important habitat for the modern butterfly. Then I was working with these people out in Portsmouth. You might know this painting from somewhere around here. And they were like, I was trying to figure out, like, they were saying like, well, it's not Norfolk, it's Portsmouth, it's whatever. And it's like, oh, what is this? And I started looking at all these satellite maps of the end of Chesapeake Bay and all this stuff. And I was like, this is a crazy place. This is wild, this intersection of all these like waterways, but also there's this military base, but also the Navy yards, crazy stuff. And there's the little parks. And it was just like, it stuck in my head that it was kind of emblematic of this feeling that I have, but I don't have enough brains to actually make it work yet, where this understanding of us and how we live and how we shape our environments, that's got to be something that's a better negotiation. It's a better negotiation between green spaces, between spaces that are habitat for non-humans. Some we can enter, some we can't enter. And are we more organic in how we think about layouts of cities and where we live and how we live? It's too big for me to like solve today, but this is what I was thinking about when I made this painting. And whenever I'm using the acid hydrated pigments now, I'm always aware of what's around the area, pulling that into this. And so my brain is just like, right now, this is where my brain is at. It's in this space where I'm trying to figure out if there's something more I can do, something more we can do. Can we think differently, right? So I'm gonna wrap up here. I come from nothing. I come from like nothing. And this project has done it's caused some crazy things. If you're thinking about doing something wild out in the world, y'all artists or like young people in here or other people who are connected and want to do crazy things, just do it. It's like I'm not making this up. I got invited to exhibit with a bunch of international artists at the United Nations headquarters in New York, and I met Ban Ki-moon. And I haven't washed my hand since, so just think about that. And I got invited to do a talk in Coventry in the UK, just north of London. And afterwards, asking questions about that, because this is a wild time. This was like a wild time. I met the craziest cool people. I got stories about this for years. It's amazing. And I was like, me? Like, I'm from Ohio. I'm with a dorks from Ohio. What are you talking about? And yeah. And then a couple of years ago, Professor Reefer and I traveled to Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, and we worked with 3 different universities and all their students to see if they could figure out ways where their creativity and their science and art and science students could come together to solve their own problems. And this group was like a blast. This group was so fun. I mean, I know they probably have parents, but I would have adopted them all anyway. It's so much fun. So that all, I come back from all that, my mind is bursting. I'm thinking about all these young students that I got to work with, and they're so full of energy, they're so full of ideas, and their ideas are way better than mine. I'm like, we've got to tap into this. So I started thinking about this wetland idea and all the sculptures we're going to put in there. So I made this little guy, Charon, and I was like, what happens if he lives in the sea for a while? So I put him in the sea for a couple of weeks, and it turns out that he really likes an iron masked facial. His skin never looked bad. It's amazing. And I was like, what the heck? This is like, it's so cool. So I was thinking, I'm like a little kid. Obviously I'm really grown up. And I'm like, we gotta have kids doing this, right? So then this year I worked with my partner, Professor Basil Masri-Zada, and what we did is we had our students, we introduced them to the habitat with Michelle Shively, who's like, of course, no, okay. And then we had them create guardians, avatars, inhabitants that were representatives of themselves that would go live in the habitat of the sea. And then what we did is we actually attached Arduino sensors to them that were like weather sensors and weird sensors too. We put things into like heartbeat monitors, like crazy things just to see it. We attached them to each little character, creature, and inhabitant that the kids made. Put them in there, and we couldn't quite get the Bluetooth to work, so we had to connect them with these lawnmowers, which is very funny. But basically, for several weeks, their little guardians gathered data on the ecosystem. And we took that data, this is Doug McDowell, one of our grad students, amazing dude. And we took that data and we had all the students take the data, put it through AI software, and from there, generate artwork out of it. Different kinds of artwork. Many of them created songs or lyrics or poems or videos or visual artwork. And in this case, these two images here, these were edited by AI according to the heartbeat monitor data that one student got.
Yeah.
I don't know if it looks that much different than it would, but it did, which is cool. So all the students at that point really felt that they now had ownership of that space, that was their habitat, that they could do something about it. They're pretty mad that we screwed everything up, I'm not gonna lie. It's legit, they're pretty mad that we screwed everything up, but they felt like we could do something now. I've been introduced to it, my little creature's in there, I've worked with data, maybe I'm not gonna be a killer scientist, but I can be useful. And I can have a voice in this, and I can say something to mean something. That's powerful as hell. So I'm working with grad students right now to like shape that curriculum a little tighter, because I don't work with the young people too much, I work with college students. And so, but I also have a school in New York. Sasha Schwartz, one of my former students, started this school, and I joined her as a partner in 2012. And Scribble Art Workshop teaches a hyper individualist focused creative curriculum. We have a studio in Inwood, and we have a studio in Connecticut. And then we teach our curriculum in over 40 public schools in New York to kids of all ages. We have 30, if anybody wants to get a gig with us, let me know, because I'll go. We have 30 teachers that go and teach us. So our curriculum now is going to be taught in New York, in Habitats there, as our first pilot process this fall, which is So here's the thing. I'm just a dork from nowhere, Ohio, you know? And there's a lot of days when we've been out here and when we didn't have funding, and no one believed that everything would work, and we thought, what are we doing? Does it matter that we're trying to do something positive? But if you've got a crazy idea, I gotta tell you, if you've got an inkling that you could be valuable, and you wanna be a part of something, do it. Because our little tiny project there in the middle of nowhere, that actually connects to all the surrounding streams. You can see that's the coal mine, it's huge. 37 square miles of coal mine underground. It not only connects their local, to the local communities and things, but our little bit of positivity that we're doing, it connects to all 7,000 tributaries of Mississippi. And from there it goes out and joins the global currents. So our little tiny stupid piece of positivity can have an impact all over the world. And I think we all can too, I really, really do. And I'll help you do it if you want me to. DM me, get up, thank you.